Welcome to Wellness Wednesdays. Thank you for joining us. Here's a little bit of information about the University of Arizona Health Sciences and all of our different colleges. We'd love for you to come visit us when the opportunity finally happens. We have both our main campus here in Tucson and our biomedical campus in Phoenix. We're led by the wonderful Michael Dake, the University of Arizona Senior Vice President for Health Sciences. And we'd love for you to follow us on all of our social media channels. So please log into those and follow me at @AMedinaWildcat on Twitter. If you do, make sure you tag those posts with hashtag WellnessWednesdaysAZ. So again, good morning. I'm Anne-Marie Medina. I am the Director of Corporate and Community Relations for the University of Arizona Health Sciences here at our beautiful Tucson campus. We also have Caroline Berger, who is our Director up at our Phoenix campus, and Allison Otu, who is our Executive Director. We would love to hear from you, so please drop us a note anytime with any questions or suggestions that you might have. Today we have a wonderful presentation. We'll have about 20 to 25 minutes for that presentation, and then we'll have time for questions at the end. So just click that chat box down at the bottom of your screen, drop those questions in there, and I'll make sure and ask our presenter those questions at the end. Don't forget, you will get that post-session email. You'll probably get two this time because we will be sending out an extra one with all of the slides from today. And so also we will include those links and resources and the links to the video today and all of the videos that you might have missed in the past. So please allow me to introduce our speaker for the day. Dr. Michael Goldstein is a research fellow at the Harvard Medical School, and he's also a proud University of Arizona alumni. His research examines stress physiology across wakefulness and sleep, along with effective intervention to enhance health and wellness, both individually and more broadly as a society. For his dissertation while here at the University of Arizona, he compared yogic breathing versus cognitively based stress management training for college students, finding a much greater benefit overall with yogic breathing. His current postdoctoral work focuses further on automatic, which is heart rate, endocrine, which is cortisol, and immune system, which is inflammation, mechanisms, which linking sleep, stress, physiology, and health. Welcome, Dr. Goldstein. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Anne-Marie, for the very warm introduction, and thank you everyone for being here. I'm gonna share the screen. Yes, so very excited to share with you today some of the findings from that dissertation study that was done at the University of Arizona. So indeed, I'm a proud alumnus, and I completed the clinical psychology PhD program last year. And am now doing postdoctoral research. And I'm also a licensed psychologist in Massachusetts, and my clinical work focuses primarily on insomnia treatment. And so I'll just also briefly mention about sleep towards the end of the presentation today. Here's my contact information, and I will be sharing the slides. Some of them are a little heavier on the data, some of the research findings. I'll go quickly through them so that we can focus more of the time on the practices, but you'll have those for reference and you can follow up with any questions. So first we'll touch on that idea of yogic breathing, and as was mentioned, the dissertation study compared that with what could be considered more conventional approach to stress management, mind over matter. And I'll really emphasize the role of social connectedness, and then break down yogic breathing into a couple components. So to kind of dive a little further, more specifically into those types of practices. And then just touch on ways that it might help with sleep. That's of course a very popular question, is what can I do to improve my sleep? And especially during these really challenging times, overall, there's a lot of challenge with sleep. Some folks are sleeping better, and so there's just a lot that can be done, and meditation might play a role in that. And so just conceptually, to put this framework right at the outset, really these domains of sleep and stress, of course, as well as these meditation practices and social interactions, are all mutually influential. They have these bidirectional relationships and influence our overall health and wellness. So let's go right into these experiential exercises. So bring to mind a stress or just a challenge that you anticipate coming up. So that might be a meeting that you have that you need to prepare for if you're working. Could be a conversation that might be difficult, just anything that is challenging that you know is coming up. Now remind yourself that you've gone through these types of stresses before. You've been around the block and you have a number of tools just naturally that you've practiced in previous situations just like this. And so because of that, you can really look at this as an opportunity to apply strategies and resilience that you do have to this situation. So this new situation isn't necessarily just a stress and something awful. It might be an opportunity for growth. And you know you can do it because you've done other similar situations in the past. So that's an example of stress reappraisal and using a cognitive technique, kind of a mental trick to and strategy to improve the way that we think about these stressful situations. Now for 30 seconds, let's do another type of practice. You may be familiar with this. It's often called diaphragmatic breathing or belly breathing more simply. So for this, we'll do this for just 30 seconds. Gently, if it's comfortable, place a hand on your chest and a hand on your belly. If it's comfortable, close your eyes. And notice the pattern of your breathing. Naturally, we tend to breathe a little more with our chest. However, we can really intentionally bring more breath to our belly. Letting our belly expand a little bit more, and we can feel that with the hand that's on your belly. So go a few more rounds, noticing what that's like to breathe a little bit more with your belly. You might also really feel your heart with the hand that's on your chest. In this way, you're connected with your breathing and your heart rate. And if your eyes are closed, you can open again. So that's an example of diaphragmatic belly breathing. And these techniques, as well as a couple that we'll do in a few minutes, are practices you can do at any time throughout the day and frequently, every hour or so, taking a break. So this was the focus for my dissertation at Arizona. For that, we brought in 70 college students, so age 18, 25-ish, and they were randomized to one of two active interventions. One was referred to as Wisdom on Wellness, or WOW, and it was a bit more, it was like a focus group, a discussion group that was very structured, had a long detailed manual that we followed, and it was delivered by Rivian Lewin, who did her honors thesis on the study. And it was still very engaging for participants, just more of a discussion group format that focused on the material about the science of stress and these cognitive strategies that we just practiced a moment ago. And then in contrast, there was a yogic breathing intervention called Sudarshan Kriya Yoga that involved these various hand positions and specific breathing practices, very similar to what we just did as well. Now, I just want to emphasize that this workshop also included a a strong emphasis on social connection. And so here's a tagline of it: I belong to you. So really explicitly recognizing the social connection piece along with these breathing practices, really packaged and intertwined together. It was previously called Yes Plus Yoga Empowerment and Service, or Your Enlightened Side, and is now referred to as Sky Campus Happiness. So these are the two workshops across 4 consecutive days. So it's kind of like stress management boot camp. And the main results of the study were recently published in the Journal of American College Health. And so now I'm going to walk through a couple of those results. So first, just in terms of a free report, what participants thought about the workshops, we can see a really kind of unique description for each one. So the cognitive group was a bit more mentally specific, or about those cognitive strategies. And then the Sky was a bit more kind of open and really aiming towards kind of an energizing, activating, and connecting outcome. So we do see that both groups increased in their levels of reported social connectedness. The 3 measures I'm going to show here are questionnaires, and they were completed pre and post workshop, as well as 3 months later. So in purple is the baseline corrected increase. So this Cohen's D measure is a measure of effect size. And so we see that there, in this case, is a moderate to large increase in social connectedness for the Sky group, as well as a solid increase in social connectedness in the WOW group. So both groups improved, and we saw these types of reports that participants enjoyed or appreciated the workshops and saw some benefit. We see that in stress as well, that there was both groups showed some increases, but decreases in stress, some improvements, with the yogic breathing improving a bit more strongly. The gray bar, by the way, is the between group difference. So it's kind of the difference between the 2 colors. And then sleep disturbance also was an improvement in both groups immediately following the workshop, but then it seemed to kind of trail off, and actually it was only the yogic breathing that held an improvement at the 3-month follow-up. So then participants also came into the laboratory. And if you imagine coming into an experimental kind of laboratory room this was the actual room that was used. Participants sat in this chair, and then this screen gave instructions for the tasks, and they were video recorded throughout it. Now, if you imagine coming in, that would be a bit uncomfortable, especially when you're about to hear the instructions for a task that's meant to induce stress, and you know that. So you'd expect your heart rate to increase. And that's what we see is from their resting baseline, there was an increase just from reading the instructions about the task. And then there was a further increase when they actually started this stress task. So, and very briefly, they were asked to put their hands in ice cold water and also do a math task out loud. And so it was pretty stressful. And of course, we were interested in how might these interventions help them be more resilient in the face of stress. Also to recognize that the task wasn't so stressful that as a whole, participants were able to return towards baseline. But it was a very stressful task. And so you'd imagine then coming back after the intervention, just if you came back in the same room and you knew that you were going to probably have to do that stress task again, you'd be anticipating some stress. And so you'd probably have an increase in your breathing rate, just resting, and an increase in your heart rate. because you know what's about to come next. You're anticipating that stress. Well, it's seen that so the green bar again is the cognitive intervention. So the cognitive interventions seem to follow an expected pattern of this anticipatory stress. Then there seemed to be a buffering effect of the yogic breathing intervention. So there was very minimal change and even a slight decrease in breathing rate. Really this between group difference is more of interest, and that buffered the effect on heart rate. And these little stars are for the effects that were significant after correcting for multiple comparisons. So that initial increase was the main effect that we saw that was specific to the cognitive group, and conversely, a buffering effect of the yogic breathing intervention. So just very briefly, I'm going to go quickly through very similar results in terms of the questionnaire outcomes were measured by a study at Yale, and they compared multiple interventions and also found the strongest effects for the yogic breathing intervention. This is a yoga specific study, and with folks with anxiety, and looking at the effect of yoga compared to gold standard CBT and stress education. Still an active form of stress education, and indeed that stress education was helpful, but the yoga practice was a bit more, and then the gold standard still was the highest. So now let's do another practice. So again, sitting comfortably, closing your eyes if you'd like. Slow your breathing to a comfortable rhythm, in and out. And for this practice, it doesn't matter what thoughts you have. You don't even need to pay attention to thoughts. All that matters is breathing at a slow rhythm, keeping a steady inhale and exhale. Keep that rhythm, breathing in and out. Again, it doesn't matter what thoughts you have or anything else that's happening. Just keep this rhythm of breathing. Follow one more slow breath in and out. All right. So that's a practice of slow pace breathing. Now, for the next 30 seconds, it doesn't matter what rhythm of breathing you have. All that matters is paying attention to your thoughts, observing, letting thoughts come, noticing that they're there, and letting them either be there or pass along. Just observe what's happening. There's nothing else that you need to do. Just observe your thoughts. Notice still the thoughts in this present moment, what's coming. Again, it doesn't matter what your breathing is, just observing your thoughts. All right, so that's one form of a mindfulness practice. And now if we really intentionally bring them together, that's what's often referred to and most consistent with these yogic breathing interventions. And there are many other forms. I've only commented on one. So now let's bring them together. For the next 30 seconds, engage that slow breathing. If you wish, you can do that hand placement on the chest and the belly. Having a slow rhythm of breathing. and observing what that experience is like. You might observe that you still have thoughts. Really notice your experience while you're doing this slow breathing. In this way, again, you are integrating your mind with your breathing, or using your breathing to bring awareness in your mind. All right, so, and I'm excited to actually be researching these types of practices. So these 3 distinct forms of practice, and looking at them as potentially meaningfully different. Many times we look at yoga and mindfulness and Tai Chi and Qigong and a variety of other practices as all quite similar. They have some breathing, maybe a little bit of movement, and some mindful qualities. However, they may be, again, meaningfully different and have different implications in terms of the physiology and then how we understand the impact on physical health. And there's some preliminary evidence from a few different studies that suggests there might be a stepwise effect of combining these practices. So we're going to be looking at that in a study that was just funded by the Integrative Medicine Center at Harvard Medical School. And then just briefly to mention on sleep, I can talk about this during questions, or if you'd like to follow up with the email. But basically, there's been a lot of interest in meditation for sleep, primarily to help people relax, right? To have a meditation on YouTube while they fall asleep. And so, and much more than even meditation and happiness and meditation and performance, which was a bit surprising with these Google Trends data. It's been integrated into a standalone therapy for insomnia. And however, we know that these practices are both relaxing and activating. And that's also part of the point, is to help us be more engaged, be more connected. And so it's important that future research really squares this with the desires to improve sleep through relaxation. On one hand, there's relaxation. On the other hand, there's alertness. And this is a slide with a lot of data, and I'm just simply going to emphasize the point that there's evidence that the brain becomes more activated, paradoxically, with these meditation practices. And paradoxically, because these participants are reporting sleeping at least okay, if not better, even with this brain activation that makes them look almost like they have insomnia, or their insomnia has gotten worse in terms of the way that their brain is activated. So it's a balance. And so it's really important that we continue researching this as well. So some takeaways that yogic breathing is a handy tool for stress. We carry around our breathing everywhere we go. And there seems to be a unique advantage of engaging with breathing over just the mental strategies. And research is ongoing to better understand the physiology and what that means for these physical health outcomes as well. So just to reflect, what practice of those few that we did has been most helpful for you? And a tip we might want to engage, for example, in the cognitive strategies. However, just think about what might help increase your sense of social connection. Is it having those mental strategies, which it may be? Or is it a specific breathing practice, or a type of observing your thoughts in that more mindfulness manner? And just to take a few moments while we transition to questions to practice that. And also just wanted to acknowledge, not to disrupt if you've started that practice, the many collaborators and mentors who have been instrumental in this work, and I hope to continue staying engaged with the Arizona community. So thank you much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Goldstein. That was really informative. So if you want to stop sharing your screen, we'll go to questions because we do have a few here. One of our questions was, my sleep stress is due to nightmares. Any research going on about dreams and nightmares and stress?
Yes, another fascinating area of research. And again, there does seem to be the benefit of some meditation practices for relaxation. We like to say that that's an advantageous side effect of meditation. However, as I pointed out, there may also be some activating effects. So when it comes to dreams and nightmares, we really don't know a lot about the specific effects of meditation practices. There are other great interventions for nightmares. So there's imagery rehearsal therapy, and so kind of replaying some of those dreams or nightmares and modifying the story, the narrative around it, and some other interventions as well. So that is a great question, and you can actually probably find some more resources online or email, and I can send some as well.
Great, and we will provide Dr. Goldstein's email address so that you can send him those questions directly. Can any age practice these techniques? Yes,
seems to be the answer. I won't say necessarily definitively on behalf of the field, but we seem to have evidence that from very early ages, children report really liking some of the practices, and they actually can come even more naturally to kids than adults. There's a lot that we have to unlearn as adults to engage in some of these practices. And also, there seem to be a number of benefits for older adults, and even helping with memory and other cognitive performance and attention, and similar to the idea around crosswords or other puzzles. It's a mental practice, and also with the breathing practices as well. So, yes, all ages seem to be welcome.
Well, and that sort of ties into the next question, which was that her daughter has reported that she's had stressful dreams fraught with frustration. So they're not like nightmares. I think it's probably, you know, brought on by everything these poor kids are dealing with these days. But she wakes from them very unrested. So do you have any thoughts? Would you recommend she try this type of breathing exercise?
These, and again, these exercises can be also practiced anytime during the day or evening. So they could be part of a pre-bed routine, and that's really helpful anyways, to have a routine as you transition to bed. And they could be practiced if waking up during the night and experiencing some of that distress. They could be practiced in the morning, just after a full night of sleep. And so they can, and again, that belly breathing is a really simple practice that can be practiced really anytime. And so you can see if that's helpful. And then, you know, I would really recommend to everybody to reach out to a local meditation or yoga community, and there will be a lot of resources, and also the important value of having an instructor, to have a teacher who's really one-on-one or as part of a group working with you formally through these practices. The belly breathing is a great way to start, and again, anytime.
And we'll provide some additional resources if you happen to be with the university. We have some resources. If you're outside the university, we have some other resources. So we'll make sure and include those in our follow-up email. We have time for one more question. It was kind of an interesting one. They asked, along with the breathing techniques, you shared, would you recommend soft music, nature sounds, or aromatherapy when you awake in the middle of the night?
So, and we can answer this in two ways. I can have my clinical hat on and my research hat on.
Mm-hmm.
The research hat says that we don't have enough evidence to really make a recommendation that we would say is an evidence-based practice that we wholeheartedly recommend. So the question's open in the research sense. Clinically, I would say absolutely the tools that help you access these practices and make the most of these practices for you is really helpful. So that's just kind of a general education and kind of a message for us all to make the most of these practices by personalizing them in a way that feels safe. And again, if it's a specific health practice, always consult with a healthcare provider or other teacher of these practices. But that sounds nice, soft music and aromatherapy.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Goldstein. We do have some additional questions. Like I said, I will send those to you, and we will make sure and put all of the answers to those questions in a follow-up email to everyone. So make sure to be on the lookout for that. So thank you again for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Wonderful. Thank you. This was really nice.
So again, thank you, Dr. Goldstein. And like I said, make sure you look out for those emails. We'll make sure and have all the information in there as a follow-up and all of the answers to those additional questions. So don't forget, next week we will have another presentation, wonderful one. Dr. Dan McDonald and Ashley Barron will be sharing how to talk with your children about difficult financial times. And they'll also be sharing a lot of great resources they have coming out of the new Take Charge America Institute. So make sure you log in for that one. Just a little reminder for those of you who have been logging in every week or are new, we are going to change a little bit for October and November. We will be having 2 sessions each of those months, October 14th and 21st, November 4th and 18th. So make sure you register ahead of time for those. And just as a little teaser, we have an exciting new event for December, but we'll get those details to you coming soon. So on behalf of us here at the University of Arizona Health Sciences, be safe, be well, and of course, bear down. And as always, mask up. See y'all next week.